When you see that map, you understand why this person was sent to you. You see the teaching, you see the intention, you see the learning, and the relationship stops feeling like something happening to you, and you start remembering it as something that you actually chose.
Welcome to the Anniston Riekstins Show. This space is created for the woman coming home to her voice, her power, her way. For the woman remembering who she really is, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the world's expectations. I'm Anniston, transformational guide, spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and creator, here to walk beside you, to share stories, wisdom, and energy that guide you back home. Here, we lead from the inside out. We create from overflow, not hustle. We rise not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who we've always been. This isn't just a podcast. It's a homecoming. So let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. I am so excited that you're here today. And I have to share something with you today that I have been sitting on for a couple of years now. And I don't mean that in a dramatic way. I mean that this is a tool I have used in my own life, in my own marriage, for a really long time. And something I've referenced when Rudy and I are trying to have context and understand what's happening between us, something I've used personally with couples that I'm close to, but something I have never formally brought into my teachings until right now. So today feels like a bit of a reveal, honestly. We're talking about the relationship composite number in numerology. And while it's not something you see taught in Western numerology, it comes from Dan Millman's life purpose system. And when I discovered it, I resonated so deeply. If you don't have that book, The Life You Were Born to Live, go get it. It's one of those books I've recommended for years, and I will keep recommending. Here's what I want you to know before we dive in. This is not about a compatibility test. It's not telling you whether to stay or go, whether you chose the right person, or whether your relationship is built to last and meant to be. That is not what this is. So hear me clearly. What it does is show you the energetic curriculum of the relationship itself, the theme, the purpose, the lessons that this specific pairing is always going to bring to the surface. And once you see it, so much of what has felt confusing or frustrating or just relentlessly hard starts to make complete sense. So let's dive in. But before we calculate anything, I want to give you the concept that makes this whole thing click. Think about what happens when you combine two waves of sound or two waves of light. They don't just sit next to each other and stay separate, they merge. And what they create together is a completely new wave. Something that didn't exist before, its own energetic form, something that is often bigger and more complex than either wave on its own. That's what happens with people. In relationships, when two people come together and operate as a unit, they don't just add their energies, they create a whole new composite frequency, a new force. And that composite has its own personality, its own gifts, its own shadow. There's three individuals in your partnership. It's you, it's your partner, and it's the relationship. 1 + 1 does not equal 2. 1 + 1 equals 3. Okay? So it's not just you and your partner. It's what the two of you become together. And that is a completely different question than who you each are individually. This is why the relationship composite number works and is so powerful. It's measuring something real, the energy of the us, not just the energy of the me and the energy of the you. So now let's calculate your relationship composite number for your existing relationship, whether it be your partner, your spouse, it could even be a best friend. This is the easy part, and I love it because you can do it in literally 60 seconds. So in Dan Millman's system, your life path number is calculated by adding all the digits of your full birth date down to a final number. The right-hand digit of that final number is what we're working with here. So if your life path is, let's say, a 2911-2, your right-hand digit is 2. If it's a 36-9, your right-hand digit is 9. To get your relationship composite, you take your right-hand digit and your partner's right-hand digit and you add them together. So essentially, you're adding your life paths together. And If you've never calculated your life path, I'm going to link a quiz. It's a free quiz I have that will calculate it for you. It's in the show notes. So if you've never calculated your life path and you're listening to this, or if you've never calculated your partner's life path, I highly recommend you hit pause, you go to that link, you go ahead and calculate it. It will very quickly give you your life path, and then you come back to this, because what you'll do is take your life path and you're going to add it to your partner. So as another example, if one of you is a life path 1 and the other is a life path 9, your relationship composite energy is a 10. If one of you is a 4 and the other is an 8, your relationship energy is a 12. The number will always land somewhere between 2 and 12. If it adds up to above 12, you'll reduce to a single digit. For example, if you're a life path 8 and your partner is a life path 9, that adds up to 17. You would then add 1 plus 7 to get a relationship composite energy of 8. One small thing worth knowing: a composite of 1 doesn't actually occur on its own. It only shows up as a 10, 11, or 12. So if you're landing on a single digit, you're somewhere between 2 and 9. If you're landing on a double digit, we look at both the full number and what it reduces down to, because both layers matter. All right, so let's go ahead. I want you to hit pause, figure yours out right now. We're going to workshop this. I'll be right here when you get back. All right, let's go ahead and walk through all 12 relationship composite energies. And as we go, I want you to keep this in mind. Every single number has beauty in it, and every single number has a growth edge. There is no good composite and no bad composite. There is only the curriculum your relationship signed up for. And the more clearly you can see it, the more intentionally you can start to work with it. So let's start with the 2. A 2 composite is about cooperation and balance. And honestly, when this one is working, it is one of the most beautiful energies that a relationship can carry, in my opinion. There is a natural loyalty here, a sense of genuine mutual support, a we've got each other's quality that makes both people feel really safe and secure. Each person kind of rounds out the other. Logic is going to meet emotion, and strength is going to meet sensitivity, and together you can build something really solid. Here's where it gets challenging. The shadow of the 2 energy is withdrawal and codependency. So when one person retreats into their head and the other into their feelings, the gap between them can feel ginormous, even when they're sitting in the same room. Your boundaries can get fuzzy. Over helping slides quietly into resentment. There can be a lot of confusion about who's responsible for what, practically and emotionally, and nobody ever quite addresses it directly. It's very passive aggressive when it's in its shadow. All right, so if you have a 2 relationship, here are some questions worth sitting with. What do we genuinely enjoy doing together? Not just what we're good at managing together. Also, have we actually found a balance between our different needs, or are we just tolerating the imbalance? How do we share responsibility without it turning into a scoreboard? All right, let's move on with the 3 composite energy. It's about expression and sensitivity. So when this relationship is in its positive, there's a really rare kind of emotional bond here. These 2 people genuinely feel understood by each other. The conversation is alive. There's a romance to it for couples and a real warmth to it for friendships. And the foundation of all of it is honesty, like actual honesty, saying what you feel, not just what sounds acceptable. Here's where the 3 gets hard. The shadow of the 3 is unexpressed feeling. And this one is sneaky because it doesn't always look like a problem from the outside. It looks like 2 people who communicate well, but underneath, one or both people is editing themselves, saying what they think that you want to hear instead of what they feel. And over time, the emotional intimacy quietly starts to hollow out and self-pity moves in. So the relationship starts to feel like too much need and not enough reciprocity, not because the love isn't there, but because the real feelings have actually stopped moving. Here are a few questions worth sitting with. Are we actually encouraging each other through the hard stuff, or just staying positive on the surface? Do we listen as well as we talk? And are we sharing our real feelings or the edited version we think the other person can handle? Okay, let's move on with the 4 relationship. A 4 composite energy is about stability and process. This is a long game partnership. Okay, sisters, there's a family energy to it, regardless of whether these two people are actually related. It's like a sense of being each other's people. Honest feedback flows naturally here, which is beautiful. And when both people are aligned on where they're going, a 4 relationship can build something really last. It's the builder, it's the partnership that shows up when it's hard and it keeps going. Here's where it gets challenging. The shadow of the 4 is when all of that responsibility starts to feel like a burden instead of a choice. When the plan gets kind of murky or ambitions start pulling in different directions, a real stubbornness can set in. Arguments about family, money, logistics, who should have done what can start to become this loop that you find yourself in. And the relationship can slowly start to feel more like an obligation than a connection. So here are a few questions to ask yourself if you are in a 4 relationship. What is the actual step-by-step path that would take both of us where we want to go? What would make this relationship feel more like something we're choosing every day and less like something we're managing? Are we giving equal weight to the practical side and the emotional side? Or are we all logic and no feeling? Hey, sister, let's take a quick pause because I want to tell you about something I have just released. It is a free numerology quiz called Uncover the Hidden Patterns Shaping Your Life. And all you need is your date of birth. Here is what you're going to walk away with: your life path number, the curriculum you came here to master, and clarity on the hidden pattern that has been quietly running your life without you even knowing it was there. Because once you can see it, you can stop blaming yourself for it. You realize it was never a you problem. It was just a pattern you hadn't seen clearly yet. And once you can see it, you can actually do something about it. One of my clients said it best. She said, Anniston didn't just tell me about my path. She helped me remember it. That is what this quiz does. The link is in the show notes. It is free and it is worth every minute. Now back to the episode. All right, moving on with the 5 relationship. A 5 composite energy is about freedom and adventure. This is a partnership that genuinely resists going stale. There's this mutual here that when it's healthy, actually deepens the connection rather than threatening it, which is so cool. Both people have room to be fully themselves, and the relationship is energized by newness, by being willing to keep exploring, but both together and on their own. It's the kind of partnership that keeps both people feeling alive. Here's where it gets hard. The shadow of the 5 is the push and pull between freedom and fear. That tension between wanting independence and needing a connection can create a dynamic that leaves both people feeling unsettled and grounded. It's like too many directions at once, and it creates scattered goals in the sense of going somewhere, but not being exactly sure where you're going. And the trap that this composite falls into most often is waiting for something external to change rather than finding inner steadiness first. So here are some questions we're sitting with. First, what priorities actually matter to both of you, not just to one of you? Next, when you want more adventure or more freedom, what is honestly stopping you both? And how can you help each other feel free from the inside rather than just chasing freedom on the outside? Okay, the 6 relationship. A 6 composite is about vision and acceptance, and there's something almost luminous about this one when it's in its positive, okay? There's a clarity to this partnership, like a sense of shared purpose and genuine optimism about what this relationship can become. Both people bring out the best in each other, and there's this commitment to growth that feels mutual and real, and the shared vision of what's possible is actually what will sustain both people. But here's where it gets challenging. The shadow of the 6 is perfectionism and disappointment. What starts as this feeling so right can very quietly shift into this is not what I imagined. The ideal becomes the measuring stick, and both people start feeling like they keep falling short of the ideal. There's this kind of picking quality that can creep in, a subtle tendency to try to improve each other rather than actually just accept each other. And that energy will erode intimacy faster than almost anything else. So a few questions worth sitting with. What do you genuinely appreciate about each other right now? Today, not eventually, right now. And what is the shared vision that actually unites you? Where are you practicing unconditional acceptance, and where are you still handing out conditional approval? Okay, the 7 relationship. A 7 composite is about trust and openness. And when this one is working, there is a depth of sharing between these two people that most relationships never come close to touching. Both people are oriented towards truth and towards inner growth, towards understanding themselves and each other at a level that goes way below the surface. There's something almost sacred about a 7 composite energy when both people are brave enough to actually show up in it. Here's where it gets hard. The shadow of the 7 is mistrust and hidden pain. Okay. So fear of betrayal, unspoken shame, chronic secrets, a quiet dependence on the other person to fill something that feels missing inside. And when vulnerability gets replaced with guardedness, these two people can end up feeling profoundly alone, even when they're right next to each other. So the very thing that makes this relationship extraordinary is also the thing that requires the most courage to maintain. Here are a few questions I want you to sit with. What have you never shared with each other because you were afraid of what the other person would think? What would actively encourage both of you to keep growing rather than just keeping the peace? And how do you actually build trust here rather than just assuming it exists? Okay, the 8 relationship. Now, an 8 composite is about abundance and power. And when both people are operating in the positive on this one, there is a genuine generosity between them. The power is shared. And then because of that, the resources flow. There's like a mental and emotional harmony that opens the door to love without strings attached. And what these two people can create together in the real world, real abundance, real impact, is genuinely impressive. Where it can get challenging, the shadow of the 8 is a battle over control. Who's in charge? Whose vision wins? Money becoming a source of tension rather than a shared resource. The desire to receive without giving. And underneath all of it, almost always, there's an unresolved wound around worth and authority that the relationship keeps bringing to the surface because it needs to be dealt with. So here are a few questions worth sitting with. What can we genuinely give to each other rather than just take from each other? Does either of us feel the need to control the other? And if so, what is that really about? And what would it actually feel like to experience real abundance together? Not someday, but right now. All right, the 9 relationship. Now, a 9 composite is about integrity and wisdom. And this is a deeply meaningful partnership and often a really complex one. These two people are together to teach each other something. And a lot of that teaching happens through their differences. When both people can hold that, when they genuinely choose to see their contrasting perspectives as gifts rather than problems, this relationship becomes one of the most profound vehicles for inner growth that exists. Here's where it can get hard. The shadow of the 9 is disconnection and clashing opinions. These two often will see life very differently. And when neither person is willing to soften their position, a lonely, cut off feeling can move through the relationship like a deep, unending fog. So there's a can't live with and a can't live without quality to the 9 composite as it's most challenging. So the real growth edge here is learning to respect that the other person's path is genuinely their own and that love does not require agreement. Few questions worth sitting with if you are in a 9 relationship. Are we actually making space for each other's different views, or are we just waiting for the other person to come around? How do we honor our differences rather than just tolerate them? Do we trust that each of us knows what is right for ourselves, even when it looks completely different from what the other would choose? Next up is a 10 relationship. A 10 composite is about creativity and confidence. And just a little note here as a reminder, I know that in Western numerology, if you've delved into life paths, you'll know that the 10 always reduces to a 1. But in a relationship composite, because there's always more than one person in a relationship, the 1 is not an option. It starts at 2. But the 10 has its own meaning. And this one is actually pretty special to me. So the kind of energy that gets generated when two people truly bring their selves, their full selves to each other is that 10. And I'm going to get a little personal here because this is Rudy, and me. This is our composite number. And I can tell you that what this number describes is almost uncomfortably precise and accurate. There is a closeness in the 10 relationship that feels like it comes from somewhere older than this lifetime. It feels ancient. It's like a recognition, a sense of we have known each other before that runs underneath everything, even on the hard days. I will also mention one of my best friends that I've had my entire life. Her and I have a 10 relationship. And it was exactly the same. It was a recognition when I met her. And it's always been this really deep, profound friendship that has stood the tests of time, even when we go years without talking to each other. And so it is really special. So the creative and spiritual energy between two people in a 10 composite relationship is just extraordinary. When it's directed well, there is genuinely almost nothing these two can't build together. Here's where it gets challenging. The shadow of the 10 is unspoken sensitivity and quiet competitiveness. So hurt feelings that never get named or insecurity that shows up as irritation. It's a suppression of the real emotion beneath the surface because neither person wants to be the one who loses face. And that same passion that makes this relationship so generative can also become the source of its friction when the feelings stop moving through. Rudy and I have lived this. The pull to create together is so strong that sometimes we have to be genuinely intentional about just being a couple, like a normal couple, not co-facilitators, not business partners, not two people on a shared divine mission, just us, Rudy and Anniston. The soul connection is not going anywhere. It's the foundation. The work is remembering to also live inside of it and to make time for all the fun. So questions we're sitting with. What do we generate together that we could genuinely not create alone? Next question. When either of us feels hurt or passionate, do we actually say so out loud? And how much energy are we each really bringing to each other versus bringing to everyone else? The 11 relationship. All right. The master number 11 composite is about double creative energy and the electricity that comes with that. So these two people generate sparks, like actual electric sparks. The creative potential in an 11 composite is unlike almost anything else. And when it's channeled, the magnetism between these two people is something other people can genuinely feel when they walk into the room. These two can build almost anything together. They are, in the most literal sense, oxygen and fire. Here's where it gets hard. And here's the thing about oxygen and fire. It is not always a comfortable combination. The same intensity that produces the magic can also produce the volatility. Blocked energy, high insecurity, a classic love-hate push-pull, a chemistry that makes it hard to think clearly. This relationship is rarely boring. It is also rarely simple. And it's worth knowing that the 11 reduces to a 2, which means that underneath all that electricity, genuine cooperation is actually what this relationship is meant to run on in its positive energy. So questions worth sitting with. What makes you feel genuinely excited about this relationship when you're being very honest? When you argue, how could you redirect that same energy toward each other instead of at each other? And are you actually using your shared energy together, or are you constantly in each other's way? The 12 relationship. Okay, a 12 composite is about creative cooperation, and it's one of my favorite numbers to see in a partnership. This is truly like an interdependent team. Each person brings something the other genuinely doesn't have. And together they form something that is bigger than the sum of its parts. The focus here is on what's right, not on who's right. On the oneness of the partnership rather than the victory of the individual. The 12 reduces to a 3, which is important because what keeps this relationship alive is full and honest emotional expression. The creativity and cooperation only flow freely when the feelings are flowing freely too. You can't have one without the other here. Here's where it gets challenging. The shadow of the 12 is when the team dynamic starts to swallow the individuals inside of it, when contribution gets way out of whack and imbalanced, when one person's voice gets quieter over time and another's gets louder, when the relationship starts prioritizing productivity or peace over genuine intimacy. The strength of this partnership can actually become a place to hide from the deeper emotional work if both people aren't paying attention. So here are a couple questions worth sitting with. Are we both contributing fully, or has one of us quietly gone small? Are we focused on what's right for both of us or just on being right individually? And is our emotional honesty keeping pace with everything else we're building together? All right. I want to come back again to what I said at the very beginning because I think it is so important and it is worth saying one more time. This is not a compatibility test. Dan Millman is really clear about this in his book, The Life You Were Born to Live. Again, highly recommend it. There is no composite number that means your relationship is over. There is no number that guarantees it will be easy because we learn in relationships. The number just shows you the curriculum that you signed up for. What you actually do with that information is entirely yours. What I have seen both in my own marriage and in the work I do with clients is that the composite number describes the theme that just keeps coming back, okay? It's typically the friction point. It's the growth edge of the relationship for both of you, the thing that relationship returns to again and again, no matter how many times you think that you've sorted through it. You spiral up and you spiral down. And when you can name it, something genuinely shifts. You stop taking it so personally. You stop asking, why does this keep happening to us? And you start actually seeing the design, okay? The pattern has a name. And when the pattern has a name, that also means it has a doorway through. Now, here's where I want to take this one layer further for those of you who are ready and are really resonating with this. The composite number gives you the theme of your relationship energy, but your soul contract goes so much deeper than that. In my relationship overlay session, which is an add-on that I offer after an identity blueprint intensive, I pull both partners' full soul contract blueprints and lay them side by side. And what you start to see when you do that is honestly extraordinary. You see where one person's talent is the other person's exact challenge, or maybe you have, I call that a goal lock, or maybe you have the same challenge as your partner, and then you can see why you're walking, talking 24/7 mirrors of your wounds and why the clash is happening the way that it is. So where one person has a specific gift fully activated in their soul contract and that same energy shows up as a growth edge or a karmic pattern for their partner, that's when you know that there's a soulmate lock. When you see that map, you understand why this person was sent to you. You see the teaching, you see the intention, you see the learning, and the relationship stops feeling like something happening to you, and you start remembering it as something that you actually chose. The composite number tells you the theme, and the soul contract work, it really tells you the why. And when you have both, you're not just navigating your relationship, you're working it consciously. You're working through this energy consciously. If this opens something up for you and you want to go deeper, the relationship overlay is exactly where we take this. Again, like I said, it's an add-on to the Identity Blueprint Intensive. It's where we pull both blueprints and lay them side by side and look at what this relationship is actually here to teach, heal, and build. And it's not just for your partner. I usually will allow someone to give me up to 5 names. So it could be your children that you want to look at your relationship with and what you're here to teach and learn from each other. It could be work colleagues. It could be your friends. As long as you have their birth name, then I'm able to pull their chart and able to give you information. And that information and that context is absolutely priceless. So again, the link is in the show notes. And if you're already a past client and you've had an Identity Blueprint Intensive, just reach out directly and I'll give you the details about how to add on that relationship overlay. And I really want to know your number. Okay. Genuinely, I want to find out your relationship composite number. So come find me on Instagram at Anniston Riekstins and drop the composite number in the comments or send me a direct DM. Tell me the number and tell me if this landed. I absolutely love to hear from each of you. And I also want to ask you a favor. If you are enjoying this content, I know we have so many new listeners coming to this podcast every single week. And I want you to know how grateful I am that you're spending your time with me. You could spend your time listening to absolutely anything, but the fact that you're here, the fact that you feel connected to and resonant with this information means that it's aligned for you. And if it's aligned for you and you know of anyone else that you feel like this information could support, I would love for you to, first of all, like and review this podcast. That will help me get this information out to more and more women and individuals who need to hear this. And also share it. Share it directly on Instagram, forward it directly to a friend. Not only would I greatly appreciate it, but I have received so many referrals from friends that I admire, trust, and respect. And every time it has held something for me. And I believe that we receive what we give. And so always be in a state of giving, whether it's my podcast, someone else you're listening to. If you receive benefit, that means that somebody else will too. And when we all start sharing, we all start elevating together. So with that, I'm going to close out. I love you. I see you. Thank you for joining me here. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to pass it along to another woman who might need these words today. And if you feel called, it would mean so much if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast. It's one of the best ways to support this work and help these messages reach more women who are ready to remember who they are. And if you'd like to stay connected or share what's landing for you, come find me over on Instagram. I'd love to meet you there. Until next time, keep trusting your rhythm, keep honoring your voice, and keep becoming the woman you were always meant to be.